Alrighty, first Bible study. Everything that is our universe is created in the first sentence. From the waters come the first creatures of life. God tells us to be fruitful and multiply. You see the first signs of fruit. Jesus cursed the fig tree because it didn't bear fruit, the truth of God, because we are made in His image. God rests on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, which is also the day that Jesus is completely dead, right? He died on Friday. He was dead all day on the Sabbath, and he rose on Sunday. So now Sunday is about the Son, right? So you have God the Father. On the right hand, you have the Son. So he was dead, which is rest is used throughout the Bible to mean the state of death. Adam, when he had his rib removed, was in a state of rest, or almost like death. And then the woman quotes, "You must not eat from the tree or you will die," as God says. And the serpent says, "No, you will not die," right? So you have the first lie from Satan after questioning or doubting her. Did God really say that? Some translations may be different. So he sowed doubt, and then he ultimately lied, and that's what stirred her to make that decision. It was probably her first experience with a lie. She never had been lied to before. And then you have the birth of Cain and Abel, and you start to see the fruit again. Abel has good fruit of the heart, where Cain has evil in his heart. And that's why his fruit is not pleasing unto God. And he ultimately sows rage and kills Abel. So you have the first murder, and he's cast out. And you have Seth and the birth of Noah and his children. And you have relief from labor of our hands. So you have the great flood, and you have the relief from the labor of the hands that was sown by Cain. You have a corrupt earth, and God tells him to build the ark, and he gives him exact specifications and instructions. So this kind of tells us that God will make sure we have exactly what we need. We don't need anything else. So many people question their attributes, and God will make sure you have everything you need. And Lord tells Noah, "Enter the ark with the household. In 7 days it will rain, 40 days and 40 nights. Now 40 is a significant number of trial and tribulation. Remember, Jesus was in the desert being tempted by Satan 40 days and 40 nights. 40 is a recurring theme in the Bible, and it's almost like your trial, your testing point. The earth is like a trial testing point for heaven if you put your faith in Christ. On the 17th month, 17th day of the month, it rested on Mount Ararat. The dove returns with the olive branch and God's promise, and as long as the earth endures and the harvest continues, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will not cease. And God confirms his covenant in the sky with a bow and says, "I will never again put a flood all over the earth." And then you have the line of Noah, and this leads to Babylon. You have the Babylon brick and mortar. The Spirit was putting on me brick and mortar, and this must be why, because we are joined again under Christ. You have to understand that God separated us, and he wants us to build our connection back in Christ. We are made new in Christ, and that's what you are to be reminded of. And then you have the Lord saying to Abraham, "I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. I will bless you and curse those who curse you." You have him using his first deception, him deceiving him, saying, this is my sister. It was really his sister, right? But he was married to his half-sister. So you have him deceiving the Egyptian. It's not the first time he deceives. He uses this throughout, because there's a lot of godless people that may kill him because they find his wife attractive, or they take his wife from him. So he uses that "it's my sister," and God punishes the Egyptian for taking his wife, and he ultimately lets the wife go. You have the Abrahamic covenant and the announcement of enslavement and oppression for 400 years. But God will deliver his people, right? God tells him that it won't be forever. And then you have Hagar, the Egyptian slave given to Abram, and then you have Ishmael being born from Hagar. Beaten severely by Sarah, sent out. Well, she ran away, right? Because she didn't want to return after Sarah's beating. But God convinced her to go back and let her know that a great tribe, great nation, great many people will be built from Ishmael. So she goes back and submits to Sarah. And God changes Abram's name to Abraham. And then the promise of Isaac is told to Abraham. 8 days old, you're circumcised. That's some of the things that we see now that are continued on in Christianity. You see some of those things that started in the Jewish tradition. Some of the laws and things that were built. God speaks to Sarah and she laughs, right? You're starting to see some of God's promise, some of the God's new laws, and some of God's new things that are being built in his people. And you have Sodom and Gomorrah, and you have conversation. If 50 are righteous, if 40 are righteous, 30, 20, 10, you know? And it gets down to 10, right? And you have Lot escaping with his wife, and the town is being destroyed, and she looks back and she's turned into a pillar of salt, right? This is when you are moving to the kingdom. You don't look back at life, don't look back at the world and the devil's empty promises and lies, right? Because that's what they're lies. Keep your eyes on the kingdom, keep your eyes on the cross, eyes on Jesus. And then you also have Sarah received by God from Abimelech. Abimelech confronts Abraham, and he says, yes, it is really my sister. I did this because I was worried because you weren't a very godly place. I was worried I'd be killed. God closed their womb and reopened it after Sarah was delivered back to Abraham with money and the guilt that this leader felt. And that's 20 chapters in. We'll go over the remaining 20 chapters another time, but now you'll be 40 chapters in for the first week, and then we'll do 40 chapters for the next week, and that'll put us at Exodus 30.